All right, let's jump right in. We've got a story for you today that is, well, it's something else. It's where real political power and secret fiction just smash right into each other. I mean, think about it. What if a president's closest advisor, the person right there in the inner circle, secretly wrote a novel about overthrowing the government? It sounds like a movie plot, but this actually happened. And we're going to dive into this political novel from 1912 that, trust me, is way more than just a story. It's like a secret window into the mind of one of the most powerful men in America at the time. Just listen to this opening line. In the year 1920, the social, financial, and industrial troubles were about to culminate in civil war. Wow, that's how this book kicks off. It was published anonymously, and you can just imagine the shockwaves it sent through the halls of power for the very few people who knew who actually wrote it. It paints a picture that felt, alarmingly real to a lot of people back in the early 20th century. So the novel's called Philip Dru, Administrator. And look, this thing wasn't just some story. It was more like a detailed blueprint. It lays out this whole scenario of a second American Civil War, a really violent conflict fought by the people against a corrupt, super wealthy elite that had basically taken over the whole country. The version of America in this book, man, it's a grim place. The country is just teetering on the edge. You've got this immense corporate power that's so dominant, it's basically strangling the middle class, the farmers, the factory workers, leaving nothing but despair for the average person. And right into this mess steps our hero, Philip Dru. He's this young, brilliant West Point grad whose military career gets cut short by an injury. So what does he do? He decides to dedicate his life to saving the Republic from itself. Now, this is what's really fascinating, how Dru diagnoses the problem. He doesn't point fingers at individuals. Nope. He sees a total systemic failure. He argues that the entire structure of society has been twisted by greed, to the point where it's impossible for a regular person to get a fair shot. It's the system itself, he says, that has to be completely changed. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures that revolutionary spirit. Dru sees America as the final battleground for real freedom, not against some king across the ocean, but against an elite right here at home. He's not just talking about a few reforms. He's basically predicting an all-out war for the very soul of the nation. Okay, so let's pause on the novel for a second, because the story behind the story is, believe it or not, even crazier than the fiction itself. We've got this incredibly detailed, really radical plan for an American revolution. So who do you think would write something like this? A secret blueprint for revolution in 1912. Maybe some radical activist, a political outsider, a socialist thinker? The truth is way more shocking and a whole lot closer to the center of power than you'd ever guess. The author was Colonel Edward Mandell House, and let me tell you, this guy wasn't just an insider, he was the ultimate insider. We're talking about President Woodrow Wilson's chief advisor, his closest friend, a guy who literally lived in the White House. This is the man who helped shape American foreign policy during World War I. And get this, the timing is just unbelievable. House publishes this novel about overthrowing a corrupt government in 1912. What else was happening in 1912? Oh, just him masterminding Woodrow Wilson's winning campaign for the presidency. So he's writing a fictional blueprint for a coup at the exact same time he's executing a real-life political takeover. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, so let's get back into the novel's plot, because now that we know who wrote it, you can see his insider knowledge just dripping from every page. The conspiracy that our hero, Philip Dru, is up against, it's not some vague, shadowy evil. It's a highly sophisticated, almost clinical plan to seize control of the entire government. The main villain is this guy, Senator Selwyn, and he's not your typical mustache-twirling bad guy. He's a brilliant political mastermind. You can totally see how his character is a reflection of Colonel House's own deep, maybe even cynical understanding of how the political machine really works behind the curtain. So how does Selwyn pull this off? Well, first, he needs money. A lot of money. He creates a secret $10 million corruption fund. And just to put that in perspective, that's like $250 million today. And it's all raised in secret from 1,000 of the country's richest men, all to get their hand-picked puppet into the presidency. And here's the crucial part. Selwyn's plan is about total control. It's not just about winning the White House. No, it's a systematic takeover of every single lever of power. They elect puppet senators to control Congress, and then they pack the Supreme Court to make sure nobody can ever challenge their authority. The whole shebang. This part is what's absolutely wild to me. The book, written back in 1912, describes campaign tactics that sound shockingly modern. Selwyn doesn't waste cash on big, flashy rallies. Instead, he micro-targets the undecided voters. He uses small, local newspapers for surgical messaging, and he keeps his candidate at home, just having curated meetings with key influencers. It's a masterclass in efficient and, yeah, pretty cynical politics. Okay, so they have this perfectly planned, well-oiled conspiracy. How does it all come crashing down? Well, as it turns out, even the best-laid plans can be totally wrecked by one simple mistake. The whole thing gets blown up by a piece of technology. The money guy, John Thor, has this habit of secretly recording his conversations on a dictograph. And, you guessed it, during a meeting where they're all celebrating, he accidentally records Senator Selwyn laying out their entire triumphant plot, word for word. So who finds this bombshell recording? Thor's own secretary, a guy named Thomas Spears. And he has this huge crisis of conscience, right? Loyalty to his boss or loyalty to his country. In the end, he decides he has to do the right thing. He leaks the recording to the press. And when it hits the papers, it's an absolute bombshell. The whole country just explodes in fury. You've got mass meetings, people in the streets demanding action. The legitimacy of the entire government is suddenly in question. The nation is basically a powder keg waiting for a spark. And that final spark comes on Election Day. The administration gets desperate. They use troops to try and intimidate voters, to suppress the vote. And that's it. That's the breaking point. The social contract is shattered. All that simmering anger just boils over, and the country plunges right into a second civil war, with our hero, Philip Dru, stepping up to lead the West against the corrupt East. So when you step back and look at it all, what do you even make of a book like this? Remember, it was written by a man who was literally whispering in the president's ear, someone who understood the real mechanics of power better than almost anyone alive. So was this thing, Philip Dru Administrator, was it a dire warning from Colonel House, his secret fear about how easily the American Republic could be taken over? Or maybe it was a political fantasy, the wishful thinking of a guy who secretly wanted to just burn the whole system down and start over? Or, and this is the big one, was it something more? A quiet blueprint, maybe, laying out the exact threats and possibly the exact solutions that he saw for America's future. And that's the really haunting question this strange, secret novel leaves us with.